Good evening, everyone. And as you can see, we have met here to have a discussion on webinar for economics optional. And before I begin with this, we'll be having a brief presentation on that. Before I begin with this, what we can assure is this is going to be a discussion beyond the factual part of economics that you typically do in the GS part as well. And I hope some of you may find it interesting enough to take economics as an optional. So what I'll do, the overall plan will be I'll go through my presentation. I'll give you time in between. So I'll take a break in between first and take a few questions from you, and then we'll proceed. That is how the things will be. Yes, good evening, everyone. The online as well as a few offline watchers, which can show that how popular economics is as an optional. So jokes apart, there are a few things which I need to definitely discuss with you during the webinar. So let's begin with the webinar formally. So I'll begin with my brief introduction. As many of you already know through the GS classes, myself, Shyam Sundar, I have been alumnus of Delhi School of Economics, and very few people know, perhaps some of you may have through my online webinar earlier, that I had qualified the Indian Economic Services. I didn't join, but I had qualified that, perhaps because I was more interested in teaching, and that is the reason. We'll talk about everything, don't worry. The books, etc., all those things will be coming up as we'll be moving on. So apart from that, I have been having by now almost 16 years of teaching experience at various colleges in Delhi University, and definitely here for a long time already at Vajiram Ravi. So that's something which is not as important for you as the remaining parts of the presentation. So what are going to be the main highlights of this presentation? In this presentation, I'll be talking about the what expectations that students have when they are choosing economics as an optional. We'll begin with that. Then we'll be talking about some myths versus reality on economics as an optional subject. So there are a few things which are often kind of misleading in terms of discouraging people of taking economics as an optional. So hopefully some of those myths will be broken up here. We'll be talking about the two papers structures, paper 1 and paper 2 briefly, and everything about syllabus, about nature of questions, the marks, etc. Next, we'll move to relevance of economics in the GS prelims as well as mains exam. In mains exam, including essay papers as well as to some extent later in interview. And towards the end, I'll be giving you a brief reading list. I know many of you are interested in looking into the books. So I'll be giving you the reading list and I'll comment on that vis-a-vis class later only. Okay, and the last thing which we'll be talking about is a proposal for some extra classes that we may have on the Indian Economic Services exam, the IAS exam. So all that will be following one by one. Okay, let's start with a very basic question, that what factors you should be looking into when you are choosing your optional. So this is kind of a general guidelines which I'm trying to give you, no matter which optional you choose, whether you choose economics or any other optional. The first and most important thing, which is not written over here, is that the decision that which optional you are going to choose should be your decision. You can take guidance from many people, from teachers, from your friends, although more than friends, teachers may be helpful, but end of the day, you should be making your own decision on that. So that is why I would suggest that choosing optional should be given enough time in terms of reading the different books, etc. So let's start. The most important thing is that the subject should be of your interest. And if possible, it should be also of your background. So I have written interest in the beginning because interest is the foremost thing that should be there when you are choosing your optional. If there is a background, that will be all the more better. So a combination of both would be even better. So if you have chosen your background depending upon your interest, there is nothing better than that. Then going to some of the other things, how do you know that you should be taking which optional is also to read some basic textbooks like NCERT books you can read. Generally, I advise to read Indian economy NCERT to GS students also, as well as the macroeconomics. So for example, if you want to see whether you are interested in economics and you don't have a background, then you can go through microeconomics NCERT. Those who have background, they must have gone through. I'm sure they must have done a lot more than that as compared to the NCERT. In any case, you read NCERT for your GS purpose. So this will not be a time that you are wasting. I hope I'm clear on that. So even if you read political science NCERT or say other NCERT books, you are just preparing in any case for your GS paper. For optional, it may be extra helpful. Then the third criteria can be significance of the subject for your GS papers, both prelims and mains. So we'll be talking about some overlapping parts of economics and GS as well. Then something which is also important, since you are appearing for a competitive exam, what is also important is how many students are opting for the subject. Because the number of students who are opting for a particular subject clearly determines the level of competition that you'll be facing. So let's face the reality, it's a competition. Everyone cannot qualify. So you should know who you are competing with. At least when you take economics as an optional, competition comes very naturally into your vocabulary. So that should be applicable even in choosing any subject, by the way, when you are taking up. Moving further, let's come more specific to economics as an optional. Who can choose economics as an optional? Undoubtedly, those who have their graduation or post-graduation in economics or related subjects. I would say business economics would be equally good. This, I would say, I would strongly advise for these people to take economics as an optional. So this is the first thing. Second thing is that even if you are not an economics graduate, but you have done your BCom or similar to BCom program, similar to the BCom course like BA program, BBA or MBA, and in different universities we have different types of programs. By the way, nowadays I hope you know that even in BTech, BE, economics is often taken as a subject by students. So by chance, if you have taken it out of your interest, then also economics can be a good optional. Then even if you have no economics background, suppose you have never done economics, then since it has fairly scientific orientation, it's very graphical in its nature, very logical in its nature. Therefore, for engineers, for the graduates in physics, mathematics, or sciences in general, economics can be a good option. In fact, later on, I'll be also talking about the fact that some of the engineers have topped the exam, not just qualified. There are 2 to 3 examples where rank 1 was from economics optional and without background in economics. That doesn't mean I'm discouraging people from economics background, but the point here is that even without economics background, the subject can be taken up if they are very serious about it. And last but not least, even the other social science students. It's not that only the science students can take it. Even there are other social science students like students of history or students of political science. I know for them it will be better to go for their own subject, but by chance if they're interested, that can be a good optional, given that they have basic interest in graphs, etc. So the main condition that we need to fulfill here is that the main condition that we need to fulfill is that in this case, in economics, you should be definitely interested in graphs and don't dislike basic mathematics. Okay, so I have underlined this because this is actually very much needed for anyone who is taking economics as an optional, that they should be taking up. Sorry. they should be having some liking towards the graphs, and they should also be having basic idea about the mathematical interpretations, etc. Let's be clear on this. Fine, you will not be needing graphs otherwise in this exam if you are not taking up this optional. But basic mathematics you will in any case need when you appear for CSAT. So although very indirectly, somewhere or the other, even in CSAT, the economics optional helps you a lot. Well, what else is needed? Apart from that, you will just be needing some basic logical precise writing skills, so that in paper 2 particularly you will be well rewarded on that. Paper wise discussion will be taken up as we move further. Okay, since I'll be taking up a discussion related to Indian Economic Service later, I think here also we can talk about that a little. Actually, there are many myths about economics optional which are there, because people fail to. Don't worry, I'll give you time for doubt session. Just wait for 5 minutes or so. Since there are many people who mix up the Indian Economic Service and economics optional in UPSC, they become more confused. So that is why I've just presented a table to differentiate on that. Starting with this. Basic writing skills, precise logical writing will be needed in both. So because you will have a paper 2 on Indian economy, you will have paper 2 on Indian economy in the economics optional also. And even in Indian Economic Service, IAS is Indian Economic Service. Even in Indian Economic Service, you have a paper on Indian economy. So more or less, whatever we do in Indian economy in optional will also be fruitful for Indian Economic Service. Then comes graphical interpretation. If you are thinking of some examples in graphical interpretation, I mean you should be familiar with the terms like slope of a graph, okay, or you should be known to what is a tangent, what is the relevance of a tangent, or basic maxima minima kind of a concept, okay. As in, what is the graphical maxima minima? Something which I do in the class initially. Let me just tell you. I know many of you know about it. Even if not, we'll be taking it up. So yes, clearly this is important for economics optional. The paper 1 is highly graphical. Almost in every question, you will be expected to draw a graph. If not every, definitely in 80% of the questions, when you are answering, you will be needing to graph. Why did I write it should be conceptually correct? Because no one is going to check your graph through a scale. So for example, if you are drawing a straight line, no one is going to check whether it is literally of some length or not. Or suppose that you are drawing a U-shaped curve, no one is going to exactly see whether it is a perfect U-shaped curve or not. It should be conceptually correct. So even by free hand, you can draw the graph. As long as conceptually you are correct, you will be rewarded for it. That's the point. Obviously, that is needed for Indian Economic Service as well. Basic mathematical aptitude, by which I mean something like solving simple linear equations, sometimes in one variable, sometimes in two variables, and basic differentiation, which is a part of calculus. I know some of you may not have done calculus because this is done only by the time you have maths in your 11th and 12th. Some of you may not be having. So again, don't worry on that. We'll be having class on that. But basic differentiation concepts, etc., are needed, without which learning economics becomes difficult. So yes, these things are important in optional, but questions are very few. Most of the times, the numericals which have been asked are not compulsory questions. I repeat, most of the times that the numericals that they have asked in this UPSC, they are not compulsory. So students had choice to leave it. I think only once they had put it in a compulsory question so far, but then you never know. So since they have asked it one time, I would say that you should be somewhat familiar with basic mathematics. That helps. Clearly, that is needed in Indian Economic Service also. In fact, in Indian Economic Service, possibly you will have to go beyond that. Apart from the basic mathematical aptitude, you may also need some advanced mathematical economics, say matrices, etc. But just to clarify, any advanced mathematical economics is not asked in the UPSC paper, UPSC CSE paper. So the optional paper that you take for the civil services exam, in that you will never be expected to solve complicated mathematical numericals, which is a common myth. That will be needed only if you are writing the Indian Economic Service exam. By the way, I will share that later also with you, that Indian Economic Service in any case is a exam which can be written by those who have post-graduation in economics or in related things. So unless you have post-graduation in economics or related subject, you can't do that. Similarly, statistics, econometrics, etc. are never asked in civil services exam. So I repeat again, in civil services, you will mainly need graphs. Maybe very small part, 5% of the question, not more than 10%, would be basic mathematical, concept oriented. Rest is never asked in civil services exam. They are only asked in IAS. I hope that clarifies some of the myths that you may be having earlier, that it's a highly mathematical paper and so on, so forth. Okay, next thing is that how do you know that you have interest in economics? As I was telling you earlier that you should be taking up a subject on the basis of your interest. I've already told you, I'll repeat, read the NCERT books. You can start from around standard 10th or 9th and go till the 12th. And particularly if you are looking into economics, try to find yourself whether you are comfortable understanding the graphs or not. Okay. Then you can also read some articles in the newspapers to see whether you are comfortable or not. Something that I advise in any case for GS also. Okay, that will also be a way to look into that. Editorial articles you can read, but editorial articles are slightly complex. So just because you are not understanding editorials in the beginning doesn't mean economics is not for you. I repeat, suppose that a few economics related editorials in the newspaper is not clear to you. It is not necessary that the subject is not good, because editorials are often complex by nature. They are written by some of the more renowned researchers and faculty members. So you should be aware of it. And last but not least on this part, you should never choose economics optional thinking that will be doing the share markets or the other parts of financial markets and scams in the economy in detail. We will not do it. It is not important for the optional paper. Let's be very clear on it. Not even for GS. Okay, not even for GS and definitely not for optional. You'll be expected to know a lot detail of the share markets or scams in share markets or the minor interior policy making in a company, etc. So just to clarify that also. Okay, one way that you can see whether you are fit for this subject is just be careful and see into the syllabus of the two papers that I'll discuss briefly with you. If that raises your interest, that can be an indicator. Economics is unique because economics approaches any issue with a more objective manner as compared to many other subjects. So every subject has their own pros and cons, but economics is known for approaching anything in a more objective manner. We don't just rely on logic, by the way. Logic is one of the first things, and then we test that through data, historical data or the current data also. And that is why economics is a very ideal subject for those who are somewhere in between science and humanities. As in, it's a social science. It is both sensitive to social welfare on one hand, and it is very science-like subject. So if you find your personality as a combination of both of this, if your personality is something which is very much in favor of scientific approach to something, but the purpose of using that scientific approach is to solve problems for economy, particularly for those who are unprivileged sectors of the economy, then this subject is very ideal for you. So the subject is very ideal who are very much careful about the social problems, socio-economic problems, but they are ready to look at the problem in a much more systematic way, scientific way. Okay, I'm just trying to give you whether you should be choosing this optional in this way or not. Okay, I think one more page after which I'll be taking some questions from you first. A few more myths and realities related to economics, and then I'll be taking a few questions from you. Like, I know these questions are in some of your minds. One, economics has a vast syllabus as well as dynamic, and that is why many students don't want to take this subject. As far as vast syllabus is concerned, I won't keep you in dark. Yes, the syllabus is reasonably good enough. I will not tell that the syllabus is very short, will finish quickly. Okay, there is nothing like that. So it will be time taking. But then most of the optional syllabus are vast. Remember, there are hardly 2-3 optionals, I don't want to name anyone, which are often known for its shorter syllabus. Okay, if you are only looking into subject with shorter syllabus, then possibly economics may not be a good subject for you. But then be careful. Don't just go for a optional with shorter syllabus without any interest in that. Because what will happen, you will end up the syllabus, but end of the day you will find that you are not having that intuitive kind of answer writing in those subjects. So no matter which subject you take, that should be the subject of your interest. I'm not pinpointing any subject here. Okay, but at the same time, it is a decision that should be taken up by you. As far as the dynamic syllabus is concerned, I disagree. Okay, first of all, what do we mean by dynamic? Generally, the word dynamic is used in the sense that every year you have to add more things. In UPSC optional, when we say something is dynamic, we mean that every year we need to add more things in the syllabus. You can't just read one thing and then say write the examination next year. Well, it will be there with economics that it will not be much dynamic. Okay, I know you are generally being told sometimes in GS classes or sometimes even otherwise on internet that economics is very dynamic. Well, every subject is dynamic. If you talk about subject, every subject is dynamic. Let me tell you, history is dynamic. Every day, new inscriptions are being found, and we are going to get new ideas about our own history on that. So you can't say economics is dynamic, history is static. No, please. Every subject is dynamic. The point is, for this examination, how dynamic it is. Economics is not much dynamic. Why? Paper 1 is completely static, in the sense that the theories which we do in paper 1, they have been given decades ago, some of them centuries ago. So that way, it is not dynamic at all. They are not going to change. Even in paper 2. So paper 1 is completely static, as I told you. Paper 2 can be somewhat dynamic, but that also very small part. Okay, the part of current affairs, etc., on that questions are relatively very less being asked. And whatever is asked on current affairs part, that we do in any case in the GS classes as well as in the optional. So let's put it this way. Whatever current affairs on economics that we do in GS, I repeat, whatever current affairs on economics that we do in GS, there will not be anything extra needed in optional. You will not be required to do any extra current affairs for economics optional than what you do in GS. Rather, you will need less in the optional. So that way the subject is not very dynamic. Let's proceed. Again, a common myth, only the students of very renowned universities do well. Fine. Every university has its own syllabus, and definitely there are some of the top universities where performance has been better. Say the students of DU and JNU typically perform well. But then it's nothing like that other students are not doing well. They are also doing well. Because according to me, the way that through our teaching, we gradually find out that there is something new to learn for everyone. And I'm being very honest on that. I have seen that something which is being taught in, let's say, Bihar University is not taught in Delhi University. Something which is taught in, say, University of Madras is not taught in Jawaharlal Nehru University. So every student has to adapt on that way. Okay, there is something new for DU students also. There is something new for, say, the students of other university also. I'm telling this only for those people who are from economics background here. Obviously, those who are not from economics background will do all the things in the class. As I told earlier, I'll repeat, some engineers also have topped the exam, and that is a factual part. Then another myth, economics is highly mathematical subject. I clarified that. Maths is being asked, but more important is your mathematical aptitude. It is not necessary that you'll always get mathematical question. By the way, if you get a question and attempt it well, don't forget you can get 100% marks on that. There are very few subjects in this exam which give you 100% marks in a question. Okay, so sometimes in economics you may get that opportunity. Then economics is not a scoring subject. Another common myth goes that way, which is again not very true. We have seen on an average 270, 275 marks achieved by those who are serious. Those who are more serious, they have even got 300 plus. So you have many examples here. For example, this year only, I think 47th or 48th rank was the economics student. His total marks was 307 in paper 1 and paper 2. Yash, who got 4th rank last year, he also had 300 plus marks. So it's attainable. It's not that the economics marks is less always. Yes, it's slightly risky, particularly paper 1, because it's technical paper. It's like if you write a wrong answer, you will lose marks completely. Unlike, say, some of the humanities related optional, where if you write something, you may get still some marks. Although that is also a myth, by the way. Many people take the humanities subjects as their optional, or social sciences other than economics, thinking that they will write anything and they will get some marks. Believe me, it is not true. Okay, because the examiners have a lot of time to read your answer. You cannot, unlike your say some of the graduation subjects, etc., where you wrote anything and got some marks, you'll get it here. Here, the basic difference is that there are very limited number of students in optionals like economics all the more, and teachers have a lot of time to check your answer sheets. You can't bluff them. So be 100% prepared on your side, then and then only you will be getting higher marks. I think I'll take a pause right now, although a lot of my presentation is still left. For example, the paper 1, paper 2, syllabus, etc. I'll still do. But any question from what we have discussed so far, let's take a few online questions first. What effective strategies would you suggest to manage both GS and economics optional given the lengthy syllabus and time constraints? Well, there is no effective strategy except that you should be just following the syllabus honestly. And if you are doing that, automatically you will start finding a lot of overlaps in both. Okay, so these things happen automatically over a time rather than having a strategy. If you join the classes, automatically I'll be giving you the strategy. Don't worry about it because it will be time taking. It will depend upon which part we are doing. So it's not so easy to give strategy in a few minutes or so. I have a background in economics, so this is asked by Parmeet. However, I feel uncomfortable with graphs. Any suggestion before joining your classes to improve understanding of graphs? If you have a background in economics, I'm sure wherever you have done economics from, some graphs you must have done. So please stop. So just analyze where you are having the exact problem. Is it some specific type of graphs? Say, are you facing more problems in graphs in microeconomics or in macroeconomics? Try to identify that first. Okay, possibly wherever you have studied, the graphs were not explained very clearly. But if you have a background in economics, you must have done graphs. What you can do is that you can go through NCERT graphs at least. If you are comfortable understanding them, then you will understand what we'll do in the class, because we'll begin from those things only. Okay, that is what I can say. But what is true is, without graphs being comfortable for you, you cannot opt for this subject. Okay, let's be very fair on that. I will not be keeping you in dark. I'm a BCom graduate, but had a limited interaction with economics. Can I opt? I don't know what limited interaction means. Because again, in BCom, some subjects are always on economics. At least in University of Delhi, they do a lot of micro and macroeconomics in BCom also. Reasonably enough, which is needed for the optional. So if there is a BCom graduate from DU, because I know about DU syllabus, not about every university syllabus, then I can definitely assure that BCom students will not find it very difficult. Okay, that is what I can say. Ritika is asking, I have studied UG and PG in economics from Calcutta University. Syllabus of CSE is similar to that of undergrad. Yes, I have seen Calcutta University syllabus. It's slightly mathematical. Even in DU, that is the case. But as far as I am aware, Calcutta University has good syllabus and good faculty members also. I fairly respect the syllabus as well as faculty there. So I feel you will be able to easily co-opt for that. Well, after every class, whether there will be a doubt session or not, I cannot say. But what I do, the similar way that I do in my GS classes also, I finish a section and then I give you time for doubt. And don't worry, the best part of optional will be we'll meet almost every day, at least 5 days a week. So if on that day your doubt is not coming in and later on you have a doubt, then also we can discuss. So no worries on that. The best part of optional is that here we have less time limitation. So that way we will handle it. Towards the end also, I generally devote some time to doubt clarification. No worries on that. Can I choose economics optional if I'm working as that? I'm not sure of, because the classes will be the class timing will be 11 to 1:30, 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So I don't know with job will you be able to take it up. But the good part is that the recorded lecture should be available to you. If you can manage, well and good. Or on weekends, because I typically make sure that even if we have some off days, they are not weekends. So that if there are some people who are in some kind of part-time job or full-time job, at least on weekends they can attend the class physically or live online. Rest, it's up to you. Well, not able to understand economics news is very natural in the beginning, but I'm not sure whether you are asking, okay, you have a background, fine. So Urmila, basically if you have a background you are not understanding, it may just mean that those part of current affairs economics may not have been done in your syllabus earlier. That's very natural. In most of the universities, they focus less on the recent parts of economic syllabus. It is there with almost every university. So that is not to be worried about. Worry more about paper 1. That is more technical. Paper 2, in any case, becomes easier once you sail through the paper 1. What pre-preparation should you do? I would say nothing much. Although when I do the reading list, I'll tell you something to do if you wish by that way. But I would suggest that till the time that we start economics, you cover your GS syllabus of other subjects at a faster pace. That would be my personal advice. Why is it so? Because what happens, even if I tell you something to read, you may spend a lot of time on reading something which is not much required in this syllabus, and you may not spend much time on what is required. So that's how. Okay, Sparsh, you had taken earlier history optional. I'm not sure why did you take history optional and why you are not able to score. So maybe separately we can talk about it. But just because you didn't score well in one optional, you shouldn't jump to the other without thinking much about it. So we may talk about it separately. If you can meet me in person later, that would be a better idea if you are in Delhi. Don't worry, masters in economics is very mathematical, I know. That much of mathematics is not needed in UPSC, I told you already. Book I'll talk about. For development economics, Indian economy, I'm coming to that. Just wait for some time. No. Whatever is needed in topic to understand GS or optional part, we do it in the class. No need to worry about it. Any question from here? The offline students so far? No? Yes, I would also expect your name and, if possible, a quick background, because there are very few. Jigyasu. BTech. Okay. Yes, please ask. Okay, the time of the class you are talking about, we would be having at least about 5 to 5.5 months class. Reason being, what happens is that since I'm taking the optional alone and I have my also responsibilities in the GS classes, generally I take 5 days a week class. So that makes our overall month slightly extended. But in between, I will try to have 6 days a class also. Generally, more than 6 days a week is not possible and not comfortable for students also. So suppose that if I take 6 days a week, then I may finish in 5 months. 5 months would be minimum. If I take 5 days a week, then it would be at least 5.5 months. Consider 6 as maximum. Okay, so you will have to keep yourself psychologically ready for 6 months. Yes, in between, the good thing is that by chance, if you have to leave Delhi for some reason, you can always attend the online classes. So believe me, it is for your benefit that we do it in a little detail, because doubts, etc., solving classes take time. I hope it is clear. Yes. Divyansh.
Question asked is the traditional based on logical based. For example, JD says supply creates on demand. Do you think it's really exists in the present time?
Okay, that doesn't matter. So you have to do the theories which have been given. Okay, so fine, let me answer your question. Like Say's law is telling that supply creates its own demand. Whether it is correct or not, it's a debatable issue. So in macroeconomics, as we'll do in the presentation later, we will do classical economic theory also, which is Say's law influenced. We will also look into the criticism of classical theory, say given by Keynes. UPSC asks all the things. So for example, UPSC can ask, what are the main criticisms of the classical theory given by Keynesian theory? Or to what extent classical theory is still relevant right now? When we will do all this, you will realize that in macroeconomics, many a times we have seen that for some time period, a theory is very relevant. Then there is a criticism. Then we find out that perhaps the earlier theory was still relevant. Okay, so that keeps on turning and turning again and again. You have to be more of an observer rather than judge. Okay, you don't have to judge classical is bad, Keynesian is good, or something is good or something is bad. You have to read all. Rather, there are many questions in macroeconomics which are interlinked. They will link classical with Keynesian, Keynesian with neoclassical, neoclassical with neo-Keynesian, and so on. If you look into question paper, you will yourself see that, and we'll do all that in the class. No worries on it. Yes, that I'll discuss. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you all that. One by one, I'm coming to that part. Any other question? Your name, please. Yogit.
Sir, sometimes it seems like that economy is the only subject I can offer my option. At the same time, it seems like I should not go for it. Like my math is not that good, and when I see the paper,
You have background in economics?
actually I'm doing my graduation at BA program.
Okay. Okay. If you are comfortable with graphs, and if you have a thinking that economics is the only subject you should take, I should say that you should take it. Don't worry much about maths. Basic maths. If you have you done maths? Till which class you have done maths? 10th. So there will be just a minor part of maths which will be doing beyond 10th, but that I do in the class. Okay.
MA
MA in economics is not at all important for CSE. For the civil services exam, MA in economics is not important. Let me clarify to all the students, offline and online. Why? Because in most of the universities, MA economics is highly mathematical. Okay, beyond a point, it becomes more mathematics and less economics, which is not at all relevant. Okay, rather, some universities have less mathematical MA economics. They may get some help from there. So I will not say that MA economics is bad, but say someone who is doing MA from JNU would still find it helpful. Someone who is doing it from DU may not, because DU is highly mathematical in its approach in MA. That is not fitting with the requirement of the subject. But MA in economics, if you have not done, that is not at all a hurdle to you. That I can 100% guarantee. I hope I'm clear on that. Okay. Yes.
So my name is Shiva and I'm from Delhi. Sir, actually I had economics in my 11th and 12th standard as well as after my normal BA.
Mhm.
I had economics as a subject, but I am not familiar with the mathematical operations and all till 12th only whatever we taught in, but we were taught in microeconomics that.
You did your maths till standard 10th? 10th. Okay. So I think similar problem. Look, things like slopes and tangents and linear equations, these things are done till 10th also. So let's say if you are comfortable with equation of a straight line, okay, something like that you should be, then it wouldn't be a big issue. The only thing which will be new for you, let me tell you right now, will be differentiation. Differentiation is, I think, not done so far till 10th. Okay. So, but differentiation is actually a very simple mathematical concept, which I devote one class upon already. So, and the good thing is that I do it very early. So, what best advice I can give you is that you can join it. You can even say, hopefully by third or fourth lecture, I'll be doing those mathematical parts, and you can yourself see whether you are reasonably comfortable or not. If you find yourself highly uncomfortable, I won't force you to take the subject. Okay, basic things should be clear about it. Otherwise, most of the questions are not mathematical. They just expect you to be graphically clear about it. Okay.
Sir, actually, I'm like, I write elaborative answers. I do not write that.
That we will take care of during the process. Okay, don't worry about it. Okay, at least you write. Nowadays, most of the economics students say, okay, we have to write also. So don't worry. At least you write. If you write elaborate answers, we can shorten that out. That is an easier job than forcing you to write. Okay, so don't worry about it. Okay, let's see. That will take care of. Any other? Yes. Which question? No way. Differential equation is too advanced. Not even integration. Okay, so the only part of basic calculus is needed, which is differentiation. And in differentiation also, mostly that complete differentiation, that ddx of y, which we do, the partial differentiation, etc., are very rarely needed. And as I told you, I do that in the class. So anyone who is understanding mathematics, and they are not something like, oh, maths is, I would never touch upon. So someone who decided in standard 10 that I will never study mathematics ever, for them possibly it is not fair. But then how will you write CSAT? Okay, so don't forget that in CSAT, in any case, they are not asking very easy mathematics any longer. They expect you to be reasonably good. I know CSAT is qualifying, but qualifying is also qualifying after all. Okay, uh, there were some earlier question. Can you please scroll down the earlier question? Yes, Ranveer, which question you were asking? Yes, I told you it is possible to score 300 plus. I gave you two examples right away. Yash had scored, I think the other person's name was, I don't remember exactly, Gaurav, if I'm not wrong. Fine, we can look into that. They have scored. It is very much possible. Anything else? I have answered your question, Ranveer. Any other question? Business economics syllabus, good enough. I'm not sure what you have done in business economics, but as far as I'm aware of the syllabus of, say, DU, business economics, they do a lot of micro and macroeconomics, so that may be suitable. I'll be teaching the entire syllabus alone. Okay, so optional I'll be taking up alone, because what happens in optional, there has to be a kind of line of thinking which will be there. Don't worry, even for self-study, in fact, I'm giving you all the tips for self-study. Like when you are doing your self-study, also should focus more on graphical interpretation, a little bit of mathematical interpretation, which I'll tell you in any case. Okay, let's proceed to some more, and then I'll be coming back to your doubts again. So now what I do is, we talk about the nature of the two papers. We start with the paper 1 of the economics. Paper 1 is what we call theoretical paper. And be clear, many people understand the word theoretical wrongly. Theoretical doesn't mean descriptive. Theoretical doesn't mean you have to write and write and write. No. Theoretical means something which is theorized, something which is given in a kind of assumption-based theory. Okay, that is what we call theoretical. So I would say there are main 4 parts in the paper 1 broadly. The first major part is microeconomics. Microeconomics, as many of you know, those who don't, is nothing but the study of individual behavior of the economic agents. Okay, economic agents can be consumers, can be producers, etc. So within microeconomics, there are 4 main parts that we'll be doing. The first part will be on theories of consumers' behavior. Like within this, we'll be having the marginal utility concept and the indifference curve theory. Okay, these are the major parts of the consumers' behavior theory. Then we'll be talking of theory of firms or the markets. Actually, within theory of firms or the markets, we will first do the production theory and cost theory. Using the production and cost theory, the production functions, etc., we will enter into the market theory. And there are, again, say 4 types of main market. Market in economics refer to the situations where the sellers are interacting in different ways. Mainly the sellers interact in different ways. So here we will have perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, etc. This part is very important. Every year in economics optional, we are definitely getting question from the market theory. Within market theory, oligopoly and monopolistic competition are their favorites. Okay, oligopoly and monopolistic competition, on this they are asking regular questions. Sometimes they have asked mathematical questions on oligopoly. Not every year, by the way, but sometimes they have. Like Cournot duopoly model. Don't worry, those who have not done economics, don't get scared by these names. These are just economists' names. Okay, Cournot is the name of an economist. So the Cournot duopoly model related numerical has come, or something similar. Similar duopoly model related numericals have come in past, but mostly they have not been compulsory. The students had option of leaving those numericals and doing something which is a non-numerical question. Then we will have theories of distribution. This is one area of microeconomics which is not taught in many universities. Like in Delhi University, or at least in Delhi University, they don't teach much on these theories of distribution. Where we'll do theories of Kaldor, Kalecki, okay, Kaldor theory, Kalecki theory of distribution. Briefly, we'll talk about Ricardian theory. I know some smiles are coming in other universities, it is done. So that's what I told you. Don't feel bad that you have not done your graduation from DU or JNU, something like that, because certain parts of syllabus are done better in other universities. So a DU student will struggle more on theories of distribution. Perhaps the other university students may struggle on some other part. Like DU students may be more comfortable in market theories because DU has a much more focus on the numerical interpretation. Then we'll talk about general equilibrium and welfare theories. Again, regular questions are coming from welfare economics, like the Saints approach to welfare economics, the Arrow's impossibility theorem. Okay, that's a very favorite question which often come from the examiner. Arrow was the name of an economist who had done a lot of research on welfare theory. So Amartya Sen, Janet Arrow, etc. The welfare theories given by these economists are very often asked in the examination. So this is about the first part, microeconomics, the first part of paper 1. Then we will come to macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, actually I have done here 2-3 things together. If you wish, you can take them separate, but I would say there are 3 parts which are very similar to each other: macroeconomics, money and banking, and public finance. Although in your syllabus they are given as 3 different parts, but I put it together because there are many interlinkages. Within this, the major part will be on macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, what we do? We do different schools of macroeconomics. And be careful, school is not taking you back to the school. School here means the thoughts, the theories which were given. So I have written some of the important schools already here, like the classical school of macroeconomics, which is considered as the oldest one since the times of Adam Smith, known as father of economics also. Then the neoclassical economics, towards the as we reach towards the Great Depression, the neoclassicals were becoming more important. Economists like Marshall, Alfred Marshall being the notable one. Then Keynesian, undoubtedly, John Maynard Keynes, the one of the best or most popular economist of all times, is J.M. Keynes. So much important that a school is named after him, not one, but more than that. Then we'll talk about new classical, monetarist theory given by the economists like Milton Friedman, then new Keynesian. Actually, I think all these schools are rarely done in any university. I don't know if it is done, you can tell me, but I have seen rarely any university talking about all these theories. For example, most of the times that they take up macroeconomics in University of Delhi, they keep on talking about classical, that too very briefly, mostly about Keynesian and the neo-Keynesian. And that is where they stop. A little bit on monetarist, new Keynesian, but very briefly. But in UPSC, you have to do it in more detail. Even if you are doing it for self-study. Those who are not going to join the classes, I'm telling this for them also, that even if you are doing it through your own, by your own, you should be very comfortable in all schools of macroeconomics. It's not like that, okay, you will leave new Keynesian and you will attempt the question. No. Because if they give you a question, they may link classical with Keynesian, Keynesian with new Keynesian, neo-Keynesian with new Keynesian. I know these terms appear very confusing right now, but when we will do the class, then it will be becoming clearer. Most of the questions are coming from these schools. What type of questions? The questions may be mostly on these things. In these schools, what is the interaction between income or equilibrium national income, unemployment, inflation, wages, interest rate, and very importantly, they very often ask questions on impacts of fiscal and monetary policy. Like, how impactful is fiscal policy under Keynesian theory? Or how impactful is monetary policy under Keynesian theory? Similarly, in new Keynesian theory. Similarly, in neo-Keynesian theory. I hope you are getting that. These kind of questions are very often asked. Okay, before I go to money and banking, one more thing. Best part of macroeconomics is that macroeconomics is very well interlinked part of the paper one. Micro is also interlinked, but not as interlinked as macro. In microeconomics, for example, when we are done with consumer behavior, you may get a little bit of help in production behavior theory, but that will be different. In macroeconomics, everything is very much interlinked. So that is why many students find, particularly those who are new to the subject, they actually find macroeconomics more interesting. All the more because that is also linked to the GS part. Macroeconomics is clearly more linked to the GS part, but then questions are coming in paper 1 on both parts. So you have to bear with that. Money and banking will include theories like money multiplier theory, quantity theory of money. By the way, QTM we will already do in classical macroeconomics. So that way money and banking and the macroeconomics are also interlinked. That is why I'm putting it under the same head. Then banking related concepts like NPA, etc. On that also questions are coming. By the way, those of you who are also attending GS classes here, even if not, don't worry about it. I'll have some discussion on that. Then whatever I do in money and banking in GS, large part of that is also helpful in the optional. Whatever is extra, in any case I do. Some mathematical parts, in any case I do that. Then comes public finance, like theories of taxation, public expenditure, subsidies, etc. that we will also be talking about. So this is about the second part of the paper 1. First part was microeconomics, second is macroeconomics, along with money, banking, public finance. Coming to the next one. The third part, we are still doing paper 1 just to recollect. Third one will be on international economics. So in international economics, we will do theories of international trade. After doing the international trade theory, some of the common examples of these theories are the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, the Ricardian theory. I'm sure who have done economics, they must have done it at some point. Then how trade protection like tariffs or non-tariff barriers impact these theories. Then we will be having open economy, macroeconomics. So international economics will have one part which is microeconomically oriented. Okay, remember in economics there are major branches, micro and macro only. Whatever we do after it is interlinked to them. So micro and macro are like two basic pillars of economics. Whatever we do apart from that are somewhere interlinked. Like when we do international economics, the first part will be linked more to micro. Then we will come to macro. Like in an open economy, how the interest rates or national income, etc. are determined. What are the different types of exchange rate systems, balance of payment adjustment. Then finally, we'll be looking into the trade blocks, monetary unions, WTO, etc. By the time we will reach these parts, trade blocks, WTO, etc., again, there will be a mix of micro and macro both. Okay, so WTO I do in the GS class also, but clearly in optional, we'll be doing it in much more detail. Coming to the fourth and the last part of paper 1, which is growth and development. So fourth and the last part will be on growth and development. Again, a good mix of micro as well as macroeconomics. Like most of the theories of economic growth are microeconomic. Some examples are Lewis model, Harrod's model, Domer's model. Actually, a mix of micro and macro, I should say. There is a little bit of micro and macro both in this. Balanced and unbalanced growth models and so on. Whatever more will be coming in, we'll discuss. There are many models. Like common questions can come on Harrod-Domer model, Solow model, Romer's model, which is the indigenous growth model. These three are the main models. Apart from that, the Lewis model related questions are also common, even balanced and unbalanced growth. Then we will enter into somewhat paper 2 like discussions also. For example, when we'll talk about economic development in least developed countries and developing countries also, Middle's view on economic development, Kuznets' view. So here you will see that gradually you are shifting from paper 1 to paper 2. Actually, by the time we will do growth and development, you will start recognizing that economics is much more than just graphs, etc. And you will start recognizing that how do we interpret those graphs or some basic mathematical things that we learned for developing economies like India, not just India, but like India. Okay, and then it will be clearly more helpful in the second paper also. Then there are many other links of economic development, like international trade and economic development. How can trade be linked to economic development? Planning and economic development, welfare indicators. A few things I have not written here. I can tell that orally. Human capital development is one area also which will be exploring. Environment and development. So environment and development is also, yeah, I have written it here. Sustainable development is same as environment and development. On sustainable development, interestingly, they are asking regular questions nowadays. Okay, so somehow the environmental part of this is becoming very popular. Almost every year they're asking at least one, sometimes two questions also on that. So that is what you should keep in mind. Nevertheless, sustainable development is very much a part of your GS papers also. Even if you don't take optional, sustainable development is a big part. I think this completes my paper 1 syllabus, overall syllabus of the paper 1. Let's just understand also some broader features of paper 1. I already told you it's a theoretical paper, and don't misread it as descriptive. Theoretical means you have to look into the graphical interpretation, the explanation of the graph, etc. in most of these models. The economic theory studies that are being studied are under certain assumptions. This is particularly for those who have not background in economics. That under certain assumptions, we typically look into how the economic variables are behaving. These variables can sometimes be microeconomic, like consumer producer linked, or macroeconomics, like national income, inflation linked, etc. What is the idea behind any economic theory? The idea is to reflect the reality to some extent, even if there are assumptions. Actually, there is one common criticism of economics as a subject, and that criticism is that economics is on the basis of too many assumptions. Agreed. Okay, that is a fair enough argument. But then, in many other cases also we do assumption. Why only economics? So just to tell you, the models that we do under assumptions in economics can be very similar to the models that we do in other cases also, which we'll be talking about on the next page in more detail. The idea here is that assumptions are needed because it's a behavioral science. In reality, there are many things which are changing simultaneously. Without assumptions, we cannot understand these things in a systematic manner. Continuing with the same thing, the broader features of the paper 1. So within one economic theory, we will have different economic models also. As I was telling you, that when we do market theory, say within market theory, oligopoly. Within oligopoly, we will have Cournot model, Stackelberg model, okay, and other models also which will be done, which is just to look into the same problem from different approaches. Again, you don't have to judge which is correct and which is not. You just have to do all of them for your examination, because you can get question on anything or linkage of that. You are not supposed to judge which is the best theory. Don't bother about that. So example I already gave over here. And just to clarify, for those people who don't have background in economics, the models that we do in economics can actually be somewhat compared with the models that are constructed by engineers and designers. Just to take a general example with you. Suppose that there is a company which is launching a new car. Okay. If they are launching a new car, it's not that they will just make the car and bring it in the market. That's too risky. What will they do? They will first make models of the car with plastics, with something else. They will use computer technology, artificial intelligence in order to study a number of things. And only on the basis of that model, they will bring the car in the market. Something similar happens in economics. We, under certain assumptions, look into how different variables will behave. And then we bring it in the policy making. So when RBI is making taking its policy related to money supply, or when government is taking its fiscal policy. Actually, there are experts who are looking into these models. Okay, hopefully that government also listens to them and kind of give them a chance to be implemented in the real economy. So that is why the models are there, but don't take these models as necessarily bad or unrealistic. Finally, what is the importance of paper 1 in GS? I told you one part that we are going to discuss is the overlapping part of economics optional and GS. Paper 1 helps a lot in prelims, GS prelims. Why? Because the trend says that from money banking, public finance together, just two topics, subtopics that I have told you, there are on an average at least 7 to 8 questions coming in prelims, within which money and banking is more important, often 4 to 5 questions alone from money and banking. So if you are good at economics, then automatically you have greater capacity to answer these questions. Overall, there are about 20 questions at least from economics that you may have heard of already. In prelims, there are about 20 questions. Apart from those 8 questions or so, international economics is another area from where questions come both in prelims and mains, like questions on foreign investment, depreciation of currency, international organization like WTO. They are very common. So definitely when you are doing economics as an optional, you are more comfortable in handling the difficult questions here also. Then by the time we do growth and development, possibly growth and development will not be much helpful in your prelims part, but growth and development makes a very good background for writing your GS mains answers. By the time you write your mains examination, you'll be needing to write answers on agriculture, planning, sustainable development, etc. In paper 1 itself, you will get a lot of input on that. And definitely by the time we'll discuss paper 2, you'll be getting more materials on that. So for example, if an economics optional student answers a question on planning in GS paper, clearly the quality of his or her answer should be different from the answer which has been written by any student from non-economics background. So these things are what helps you in making your answers unique. Okay, one more thing actually left in paper 1 was the structure. Actually, structure of most of the subjects are similar. So this part I'll be very brief because this is something which is almost well known to everyone. There are 250 marks question which are to be attempted out of the 400 marks questions which are given. Roughly, this 400 marks questions are divided in 4 topics which we did. I'm talking of paper 1. So roughly there will be equal division in these 4 topics, which means roughly 1/4 from microeconomics, 1/4 from macro, 1/4 from international economics, and the remaining from growth and development. But don't take it as a guarantee. Okay, just to tell you one more thing, sometimes we have seen slightly greater emphasis on last 2 parts, which are international economics and growth and development. And why do they do that? Sometimes we have seen they're asking less on micro, particularly, and more on international economics and growth and development, because they know that the student who can answer international economics question has understood micro well. So they're very smart. They know that if you didn't understand consumer behavior theory, you cannot understand, let's say, Ricardian theory of trade or some other growth or development theory. So that is the trick that they use. But from your point of view, you should be careful that roughly 4 topics will have equal weightage. Okay. Then there are 2 sections divided in the paper. The first section is about 10 compulsory questions. Okay. There are 10 compulsory questions, which are 5 in each section. 2 sections are there. So 5 questions in section A, 5 questions in section B. Each question is for 10 marks. Although I have written here word limit, many a times they don't give word limit. I have seen that mostly in paper 1, they don't even give word limit. And why is that so? Because some of the questions may be graph based. Obviously, if it is a graph-based question, then there is no point having word limit. So it is possible that in a question, you will just draw, say, 5 graphs and write maybe just 20, 30 words, and that's it. Yet you will get good marks. So that way, if you are good at drawing graphs, you will save a lot of time also. Okay, a student of economics must be very good and fast at drawing graphs, which will learn over a period of time, will save a lot of time for other questions also. So compulsory questions are there, which are 5 plus 5, 10. These questions, compulsory questions, can come from any topic. So they don't give any formal trend over here. They don't have a very formal trend over here. They can ask it from any topic. So leaving any topic entirely will be risky. Why am I telling you this? If you are going to select this optional thinking that you will do some selective study and get through, it's not true. Okay, selective study will not be taking you through. I'm not aware of the other subjects, but in economics, definitely you have to be fairly good at all. Yes, everyone has their own stronger and weaker areas. That is nothing to worry about. Like some students like micro more, some students like macro more. Okay, accordingly, your optional questions can be taken up, but in compulsory, you don't have much of a choice. Apart from that, there are 3 questions, each in section A and B, 50 marks each, which need to be attempted out of 6 questions. So there will be 6 questions, you have to attempt only 3, but it has to be at least 1 question from each section. And again, there is generally no word limitation. In paper 1, they hardly give any word limitation at all. Therefore, your focus should be answering it accurately, drawing the appropriate graphs, etc. That will do the trick. And these 3 questions also, as we have seen generally, these 3 questions are often coming in 3 parts. 6 questions, 3 have to be attempted. There are 3 parts to it: 15 marks, plus 15 marks, plus 20 marks. This is a common trend, but they can change it. For example, within 15 marks, they can further subdivide it in 7 plus 8. Not further. Okay, generally they won't do it further. So 15 plus 15 plus 20 is the most common distribution, but minor difference can be there. Accordingly, you have to decide. So basically, if it's a 20 marks question, it simply means that you have to be reasonably comprehensive in writing that answer. Obviously, that doesn't mean writing anything, but writing comprehensively well what is being asked, not leaving any stone unturned or so. I didn't write anything, but just I remembered, so I should tell you. Assumptions are very important in paper 1. So particularly when you are answering a 20 marker, even in 15 marker questions, even if they don't tell you, better to write assumptions. Okay, better to write assumptions beforehand. So sometimes they will not ask you about assumptions, but it is always preferred to write it if you have some time. That is generally regarded as a sign of a good theoretical knowledge by the students. Hope you are following that. So this is all about the question paper structure. Now we are moving into the paper 2. Okay, I think we'll finish up with the discussion and then take all the questions. That would be better idea. Paper 2 is on Indian economy. 3 parts are there mainly. The first part is pre-independence Indian economy. You can also call it economic history. So economic history is the first part, covered under most of the universities also, where you have to be aware of the Indian economy from 1857 till 1947 approximately. Okay, there may be some parts before 1857, but not much. Actually, most of the economic students don't like history, but this is one area which is one of my favorites. Reason, This is one of those areas which is very brief and is very predictable in terms of questions. Let me explain what I mean. Gradually, I'll be talking about that also. Uh, what parts are there in economic history? There will be history of Indian agriculture, like the land revenue system that you do in your GS history syllabus also. We will do it in greater detail because we'll go into the land revenue system economic aspects also, and how due to certain economic aspect the things changed over time. Drain of wealth, I'm sure all of you do that in GS. The industrial sector before independence, and many other things which I'm not written here, like the Indian railways development, or the Indian currency related policy before the independence. So almost everything which we were having before independence, with answers for about 10 questions. So what am I telling is that roughly you will not get more than 10 heads under economic history. I'm calling these as heads: agriculture, railways, drain of wealth, industries. Roughly you can get 10 heads. Suppose that you have prepared material on these 10 heads. It means you can easily attempt about 70 marks question in paper 2, out of which in general we have seen 2 are compulsory. So there are 2 compulsory questions that we have seen only from economic history. This time they ask 3. Okay, and they are very deliberately doing it. They are somewhere aware that some economic students are ignoring economic history and more interested in the recent economic current affairs, etc. So deliberately, as a surprise element, they are asking more and more on economic history. Believe me, it is the easiest part of paper 2. That I can assure you, because you do it already in GS history part, and this is more predictable, that I told you already. Other parts are also not very difficult, which finally I also wrote that you can get help from the economic history to write the GS history answers also. Second part of paper 2, post-independence Indian economy. So post-independence here means 1947 to 1991. Okay, roughly 4 decades, slightly more than that. So in the second part, we'll talk about roughly 4 decades of post-independence Indian economy, within which what we will do, within this we'll do what was the nature of economic planning, what was the nature of agricultural development, industrial development, foreign investment, trends in national income, per capita income, sectoral composition, inequality and poverty, etc. Now you will realize that when we are doing this part, suddenly your international economy, growth development, which we did in paper 1, will start flashing in your mind. And that will make your answers better, particularly growth and development. What we will do in growth and development, like Lewis model, okay, that will be helping you a lot in understanding the post-independence economy. For example, economic planning of India is highly influenced by Harrod-Domer model. Okay, it is also influenced by Lewis model. It is also influenced by the difference between balanced and unbalanced growth model. The names like Nurse being there, Ragnar Nurse, who gave the theory of the balanced growth, etc. So that paper 1 part will be helping you now. Okay, so one thing which I didn't tell you, let me tell you now first before going further. I will spend more time on paper 1 than on paper 2. That doesn't mean I have anything against paper 2. Believe me, paper 2 becomes easier automatically if you are good at paper 1. So paper 1 is demanding more time. That is why we'll spend more time on that. So roughly about 70% of our classes will be on paper 1. In 30% we'll talk about paper 2, but that doesn't mean I'll ignore it. The only thing will be many a times what we have done in paper 1, I will just tell you. So that will save time there. I hope you are getting the point. Things will become clearer when we do these things. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's talk about the marks that they ask for. This part of the question, this part of the paper contains about 100 marks questions. 2 to 3 are compulsory questions generally. Okay. Some questions can also be some questions can also be on a combination of pre and post independence. Pre and post 91, I'm sorry. Some questions can also be on pre and post 1991. So why did I tell you this? I have told you this, that although here for your clarity, I'm dividing it into pre 91 and post 91. Sometimes in the same answer, you'll have to bring both of them. So we have seen those questions also. Obviously, you will be able to do that once you are aware of both parts of the sections. Coming to the third and last section of the paper 2, which we can call post LPG reforms Indian economy or just post 91 Indian economy. So again, the pattern of our study will be very similar. Just like in pre 91 we looked into the different sectors, now we will look into post 91, like agriculture, industries, foreign trade and investment, WTO, etc. becomes only relevant in the post 91. I've written a few things in bracket which are more unique in post 91, like WTO and Indian agriculture debate, the subsidies debate, the food security related issue, the disinvestment policy in industries, which came into being only after 91. Then the free trade policies, etc., which came up only after 91. The new exchange rate regime, which came up only after 91. So there will be more or less extension of pre-91 in this area, but many new things also. As you know that after 91, the economic reforms which we took brought in a number of new things. Okay, going further, public finance also, like fiscal federalism, FRBM Act. In GS also you may have done the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act, reforms in taxation, etc. So public finance was one part in your paper 1 also, one part is here also. In fact, just to tell you one more thing, there are certain parts of topic which I may cover at one place. So generally when I'll do public finance, I will cover the paper 1 and paper 2 part together. That will be easier for you also. So we will begin with theories of taxation and then we will come to the Indian taxation system so that they may be more clearly linked. You may get a question on theory of taxation in paper 1 and Indian taxation system in paper 2. So that's just a clarity. Then again, monetary system, banking, role of RBI, Indian banking sector, a post-91 planning system will continue till the role of Niti Aayog. Okay, so how the planning was different after 91 compared to pre-91. Similarly, how inequality, poverty, employment-related things have changed, like the concept of jobless growth, which came up into being in post-91 situation. The launch of MG Narega scheme, okay, or the different measures of inequality, poverty. Fine, that is applicable in both pre and post-91. This third part, which is post-91, is most important. Okay, why is it most important? Sorry. This is most important because this is where we have roughly 50% weightage of paper 2. I repeat, roughly half of the importance in paper 2 is of post-91 Indian economy. Fair enough, because the syllabus is also vast here. Major part of the syllabus is also post-91. So fair enough, it has 50% weightage, which means about 200 to 220 marks questions are asked. Normally, we have seen around 5 to 6 compulsory questions coming from post-91 only. So out of 10 compulsory questions, roughly we have seen 5 from economic history and post-independence, and the remaining 5 from post-91. But again, they never write it. Okay, so be aware of the unpredictability. Okay. This is also the part of paper 2 which is most relevant for your GS paper 2 entry. So this is part which is highly overlapping with your GS mains exam. When you are writing your GS mains, this part will be highly overlapping from that. and by preparing for economics optional, you will be saving a lot of time. As far as the structure is concerned, it is similar to paper 1. So I will not be spending much time. Very quickly. 250 marks question out of 400, 10 compulsory, 2 sections, 3 questions, 50 marks each. Again, at least 1 to be attempted from each question, each section. Normally here also I have not seen word limitation. So almost anywhere in this optional, I have not seen word limitation. Paper 1 surely, even in paper 2. Maybe in compulsory question they may give word limitation, but in in compulsory they may give word limitation, but in optional ones they don't give it generally. And there is one thing which is slightly favorable in paper 2, which I have written in bold in the end, that section A of paper 2 is mostly pre and post independence. So there are section A, section B. In section A, mostly they talk about economic history and post-independence till 91. In section B, they ask entirely on the post-91. But again, this is only a trend. Like this year, as a surprise element, in section B, they asked a compulsory question on economic history. So that is okay, that is permissible. Still, largely this has been the case. And why this is important for you? In paper 2, you may go for slightly selective study. Don't take it too far, by the way, but still you can be slightly selective in paper 2. Still, being too selective can be counterproductive. Relevance of this paper in GS, the paper 2, I already told you that paper 2 and paper 3 has many overlapping parts. On the basis of trend, I can tell you a few things. GS mains paper 3 often contains 60-70 marks question purely linked to economics. This number can go up also. There are years where we have seen even 80 marks question or possibly even 90 marks questions coming from economics. When I say 60-70 marks, I am talking of average. 60 average minimum. Even in paper 2 of GS, about 30-40 marks questions are coming, mostly which are linked to economics and governance. Okay. In my GS classes, I give examples also, like poverty and governance. A very favorite question of paper 2 is linked with poverty and governance, sometimes others also. Then even in paper 1, even in GS paper 1, about 10 to 20 marks questions are there which are linked with economic issue. They are not on economics because paper 1 is not on economics. They may link economic issue with social issue like inequality, may link it to history like land reforms, not land reform, more land tenure system, famines. This year in GS paper 1, there was a question on famines, which we do in economic history, or sometimes even linked to geography, say industrial location, theories, etc. Overall, if you count this, you will see that about 100 to 130 marks questions in GS paper 1, 2, and 3 are coming directly or indirectly from economics. Okay, so if you are a good learner of economics, say somewhere around 130 marks questions you can be more confident upon. I know it's not a very, very big figure, but still it's reasonably good figure compared to many other topics. By the way, many a times we have also seen essay topic, at least one topic out of it related to economic issue. If not only on economics, it may be related to economic issue. Don't forget, essay is also your 125 marks. One topic will be worth 125 marks, both will be 250. Although, I won't keep you again in dark. In essay, there are more topics which are outside economics. There may be only few topics which are linked to economics that you should be clear upon. So overall, we find that apart from independent questions on economics, it is one of the few subjects that contains questions that are so well interlinked with other subjects, sociology, public administration, geography, sometimes history also. In fact, going beyond that, when you are writing your international relations related questions, so when you are writing your answers on international relations related questions in GS, many a times your economics knowledge will be a lot more useful. A lot of international relation is dependent upon economic relation. So someone who understands international economy very well would suddenly find himself or herself more comfortable in writing answers on international relations. I'm just trying to tell you the questions where economics is not there, yet economics may be indirectly helping. Okay. Apart from these benefits, as I told you earlier, also I'll repeat that economics helps you to approach any issue in a logical yet humane manner due to its focus on both efficiency and welfare. Okay. We are into some of the final slides now. I have given a couple of pages on reading list, although this is selective reading list because when I take class, I'll be giving you more. Uh, I'm sure this webinar will be available to you later. You can see it later also. Like in microeconomics, Coatsianis book is considered as one of the most important. Another book which is important is H.L. Ahuja book on advanced economic theory. Although H.L. Ahuja book is very comprehensive, I normally don't advise anyone to read entire book of H.L. Ahuja. It is too comprehensive for doing just microeconomics. So what I tell you in the class also are some of the parts which you can do from H.L. Ahuja. Rest, one can focus mostly on Coatsianis. And if you attend classes, possibly class notes should be enough. Actually, in paper 1, I strongly believe that class notes should be enough. Okay, why am I not telling that for paper 2? Because paper 2 by nature is a little subjective. So there also class notes will be reasonably enough, but I will give you some extra material also, which I'll talk about very soon. So microeconomics, Coatsianis, H.L. Ahuja, macroeconomics, money banking, etc. For that, you can go for a couple of books. For example, one of the best books for macroeconomics is by Froen, Richard T. Froen. It's an excellent book on macroeconomics. I'm sure some of you may have done it in your syllabus. Although, if you are comfortable with some book that you have done in your graduation, equally fine. Students of DU can also do their readings, which they had got, which are equally capable. Again, H.L. Ahuja has a book on macroeconomics to be done very selectively for those areas which are not there in Froen. On monetary economics, there is a book by S.B. Gupta, but again, not enough. So I'll tell you what else to be done in the class. Musgrave and Musgrave for public finance, but again, very small part is needed. Major part will be doing in the class. The problem is that on majority of economic topic, we have enough material, but on few there are not. Like on public finance, there is scarcity of material on public finance, to some extent monetary economics also. So that is where I try to give you some other articles from the journals, etc. So I keep on searching for them, and if I get something good, I do share that with you. Okay, so that is the basic idea. And then you can also rely on some dependable websites like RBI websites for banking concept, the latest monetary policy, etc. Macro done. So coming to the remaining part, we are still talking of paper 1. International Economics, undoubtedly Salvatore is an excellent book. Okay, Salvatore is considered as Bible for international economics and truly worth it. So someone who can do entire book by Dominic Salvatore, even if not entire, say 70-80% would do, is fairly enough to handle any question on international economics. Okay. For open economy, macroeconomics, apart from Salvatore, Froen is a good book. Then WTO websites are good for WTO agreements, but we do all that in the class. You will rarely be needing to go to the websites if we have covered those things in the class. Growth and development is again one area where one reading is not there. There are many readings, but for this examination, there is no one consolidated part. All these books are good, but to some extent, like Thirwal book, AP Thirwal has written a book called Growth and Development. So some parts are very good here, like growth models, balanced, unbalanced growth. They are very well given in AP Thirwal. But then for others, we rely on some parts of Todaro and Smith, a book which was in DU readings earlier. I don't think they have it any longer. I have not written some books, but there is a very good book by Debraj Ray. Debraj Ray used to be again in the DU reading list some time back, but selected parts. So in growth and development, it is difficult to tell you that do this book and you are done. There are part by part which we have to take. And hence, I ensure that in the class, whatever we do, if you just revise that, it will be done. You don't need to go into too many books beyond that. Then there are a few reports like human development reports which give you the calculation of human development index, etc. I'll take all the questions, don't worry, one by one. I'm almost done with my presentation also. So this is about paper 1 reading list. For paper 2, economic history book by Tirthankar Roy, an excellent book again. This second book most of you may not have heard of. The book is named New Oxford Companion to Economics in India, edited by Kaushik Basu. Kaushik Basu was our chief economic advisor roughly a decade ago. So this is an excellent book on particularly that post-independence Indian economy. When you are looking into 1947 to 91 and even post-91, Kaushik Basu book is an excellent book. Although traditionally most of the websites or other people would tell you to read Dutt and Sundaram, Mishra and Puri. Okay, they used to be good books, but personally I don't like books like Dutt and Sundaram or Mishra and Puri because they are too outdated now. Okay, they are not keeping in pace with the recent requirement of the exam. That way I think that Oxford Companion book is a better one. Those who don't do this, they can also do say Mishra and Puri. So it is like a substitute for a book like Mishra and Puri, but I would say this is much better than that, even in terms of reading, etc. There is a book by Uma Kapila, often taught in Delhi University also, Indian Economy Since Independence, which goes slightly deeper into the post-independence and post-91. You will need to do some parts of economic survey, both the current one and the last year, but in brief. Remember, on economic survey, the questions are not coming directly. But if you are aware of certain data, etc. in economic survey, you can quote them in your question. So some part of economic survey will need to be done. Again, similarly, some renowned websites like RBI, Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog website has a number of interesting documents, like on Indian agriculture, etc. That helps a lot. PIB website. These things apply for your GS preparation also. The PIB or PRS website, which keeps on giving you the brief summary of all the government initiatives, etc., that you should be doing. And then selected articles from regular newspapers, business newspapers, or some journals like EPW. Don't worry about it. I will keep on posting this. If you go and say take part in the class, possibly we'll be having some kind of a informal group also, where I can keep you posting some relevant business articles time to time. Everything is not important, clearly, but time to time they may be. Even I can't predict. So I cannot tell this to you right now because these things are dependent upon what is the situation then. Okay, coming to my final part of presentation. As I told you, there may be some classes on Indian economic services. First of all, it's a proposal depending upon how many of you will be interested. Because this is something that can be only written by the postgraduate students, either in economics or business economics or applied economics or econometrics, but you must be having a PG degree. Without that, you can't appear for IAS. The classes will cover only those parts which are not done. So it's like 80% of our optional discussion will be overlapping with Indian Economic Service, maybe 85. Only that 15-20% we will cover in around 2 to 3 weeks. I may have written somewhere. Okay, fine. Around 2 weeks or 3 weeks may take. There will not be any fees, etc., separately for it, just to clarify. But then for this, you'll have to give me also some flexibility. As in, it is not necessary that I'll cover the IES portion in continuation. So possibly we'll complete the optional classes, and then sometime later I will call you back again for the economic services part. Okay, no fees, etc., but I'll try my best to cover it. What will be the major parts that will be covering? Statistics, introductory econometrics, some mathematical concepts, and some economics optional topics in greater detail. So the major new areas are statistics, econometrics, which are in Indian Economic Service, mathematical methods of economics, and some optional topics also, which are needed to be done in greater detail. That I'll be sharing with you later on only. I repeat again, these parts are not needed in civil services exam. Okay, statistics, econometrics are not needed in civil services. This is only for the Indian Economic Services that I told you about. So this is one thing. And with this, I come to my conclusion. I think I have done most of the things which were needed for it. So in conclusion, what we can say is that, I don't know why it's, okay. In conclusion, what we can say briefly is that the subject is quite ideal optional, not only for those students with economics background, but those who prefer a scientific approach with its application to the Indian economy. It has been among the high scoring optional subjects rather than many other, with among the highest success rates. The success rates sometimes have even gone into double digits. Let me put it one thing. Many of you are students of economics or statistics, so that may sound very logical to you. Once an economics optional clear prelims, the probability of him or her getting selected finally is much higher than the prelims cleared by many other subjects. I hope you get the point. So if you go by the numbers, the probabilistic concepts, I feel that the biggest hurdle for economics optional student is prelims exam. I have found most economics optional students facing problem at prelims level, possibly because they are a little lazy. They try to think everything in a logical way and they don't memorize many things. So when you are writing prelims, forget that you have economics optional. Do the memorizing part as much as the other subject student do. Because once you clear that hurdle, your probability of getting selected has already become very high. That is what statistics is telling, not me. As far as the overlap with GS paper is concerned, I think roughly 20% of weightage in every part of GS paper is with economics. Starting with prelims, about 20% questions coming there, going to the mains. And when I say mains, I'm talking about both questions directly on economics, as well as the one which is interlinked to economics. Say economics and history, economics and polity, essay including, which is also part of GS. And sometimes by the time that you even appear for your interview. In interviews, the economics related questions are very common. And beyond all this, as I say, the optional helps you to think like an economist, which itself will be giving you a lot more logical intuition into that. So that was it from my side. On the last page, I've just given my email ID. Many of you may be having it already. By chance, if you want any further clarity, you forgot something right now, then you can always mail me. I'll be eager to help you on that. So let's take some questions first of all, and then we'll be stopping for today. IAS and CSE batches are combined. Yes, as I told you, our major classes will be, when I said my 5 months or roughly 6 months, you can say, classes will be on CSE only. The Indian economic service classes will be separately taken up maybe for a couple of weeks. So that is something which you don't need to worry about. Yes, I hope this video will come on YouTube in some time. Don't worry. How many test series? Okay, just hold on. Within this course, there will not be a test series itself. Actually, the problem is that in test series, setting the question is not a big issue for me. But correcting the answer sheets and so on, so that becomes a very tedious one. In the class, I will discuss previous year questions, okay, that I do after every topic. And I encourage you to write some of the answers, which I'll check. I hope you are getting it. So for example, when I'll finish with microeconomics or macroeconomics, I will give you the PYQs, okay, and I will expect you to write at least a couple of answers on that then and there, which I will correct and mark you also. But when you talk about test series, which is formal, that will be done separately. Okay, that is separate. That is not a part of the course. But I think you shouldn't worry about it right now, because writing a full-fledged test is not easy at this point. There is a lot of time management and knowledge goes into that. So don't become too eager to write a full-fledged test right now. Even if you write good answers one by one, consider that as a good achievement. If GS an optional time class, what to do? Okay, that you can talk to management and they will adjust. Don't worry. You can meet me also in person. Shubham, you can, if you are in Delhi, you can meet me and I'll tell the management to adjust for your batch. So if you are by chance in 11 o'clock batch, those of you, I know some of you are there, we may need to adjust the batch into some other timing. But that can be done easily. That's not a big issue. No, don't worry about it. Previous questions you saw, but I felt some questions come from outside the syllabus. Very rarely they are outside syllabus. Just hold on, I'll take all offline question after 2 minutes. 2013 was a very difficult question. I remember that. That kind of bomb can be coming in any subject anytime. So 2000, don't make your decision on the basis of one such year's question. That was genuinely a difficult question. And I can't say anything, but let me share one more thing. Gaurav Agrawal, who was an engineer, wrote his paper on economics in 2013. That is the toughest economics question asked ever in the history that I know in optional. And he topped the examination that year. So be careful. When they ask a very tough question in an optional, generally it is likely that they will be a little relaxing in giving you marks also. The topper that year was also from economics. When is it starting? It is starting roughly from, I think, 18th July. Earlier, the date was 28th July. So just to clarify, earlier the date given on website was 28th, but we'll start 10 days ago, which is 10 days earlier, which is 18th July. So that will be officially seen also. Don't worry about it. Urmila asks what you are now doing in... Okay, GS classes significance in optional. I'll tell you, why worry? I told you already here that whatever I'm doing in money and banking, or whatever I'm doing in even in my later classes like poverty, inequality, there will be a lot of overlaps in economics optional also. Step marking is done in answer, but step marking will depend upon the nature of question also. Okay, so suppose that there is a question which is clearly asking you about some graphs. If you draw the graph and even if you write the explanation briefly, then you'll get some marks for it. Definitely. Remember, from my side, there will be no differentiation between online and offline students. I will check the answers written by online students as well as offline. The only difference will be that for online student, they will need to mail me or something like that. I will try to give them similar inputs the way that I give to the offline. Don't worry about it. Yellow books? Yellow books are completely different. Are you talking about the books that I will give you in optional? Yes, I'll be giving you. Some part of it will be linked to the reading that I've given, but in some part, like Froen book itself is very brief book. So I would expect typically any student to read the Froen book himself or herself also. It's very easy book, and in any case, when we do the things in the class, it will become easier for you. Okay, let's leave it. I used to teach at KMC earlier, but let's leave it. That's not very important here. What do you mean by direct questions coming in economics? Direct means what? You have to be clear on that. I'll give you a lot of material, don't worry. In paper 2, finally you will come and say that why are you giving me so much material? So don't worry about it. Even if you do little less of that material, it will be enough for you. No, it should be 18th July. 18th July, not 18th June. Rest of the optionals are starting from 15th June, but economics will be from 18th June because, okay, one more thing, because we'll be having only one batch throughout the year. The optional is slightly technical. Students take more time to understand. So that is why we will not be having double batches in the same year. So anyone who is eager to join it, I would advise him or her to join it right now. Because possibly in October or November, when other subjects optional start, we won't be able to start economics. Okay, just a clarity. Well, it's very difficult to compare economics syllabus with public administration or anthro because they are very different subjects. How can I compare that as such? Direct questions from models, yes, they do ask. We have seen questions like, explain Kaldor theory of distribution. Yes, the questions have come like this. So there are many a times where they're asking very direct, very easy questions. But every year you may not be that fortunate. Okay, you have to be ready for indirect questions also. I told you duration of the batch will be roughly 5.5 to 6 months. Be ready for 6 months. I don't want to keep you in dark. Well, the problem is that in between, what happens is that some festivals like Diwali come and most of the students request me that they need to go to home for a few days or so. So we can't be completely kind of ignorant to those requests. So take that in between, sometimes maybe 4 or 5 days gap will be coming in. Keeping all that in mind, I won't take more than 6 months of yours. That is the basic plan. Recorded optional classes are provided, but there will be limitations on the viewership, as in views. You won't be able to get it forever. So say within a week or so, you have to revise it. And I would advise that whenever you are going through the recorded lecture, you make the notes then and there. Because later on those videos may not be provided. It becomes difficult in optional. In GS, they provide the revision lectures, but in optional, it becomes difficult. PPT possibly will be there. The entire discussion, I think, will be there. Don't worry about it. Okay, so please, online students, wait for 5 minutes. I'll take some offline doubts. Yes, please. Can you name, can you give your... Sorry? Okay. Practice as in the question paper. As I told you, I'll give you some PYQs. Okay. Many of those PYQs you would have done already in our discussion. Are you getting it? So what you will then need to do, you will need to revise the class notes and maybe read the related reading. For example, suppose that I have done with you, say, Bertrand model of oligopoly. Okay. So revise that from class notes. You can read, say, Kotsenes on that. And then I will give you some PYQ where Bertrand model question would have come. I'll expect that you will write an answer on that. And then I'll give my comments on that. It will be after every part being finished. Look, the idea is that when you are in schools or even in some early years of college, you do the writing of answers more regularly because the materials covered are easier, simpler. Okay, but when we are doing this kind of discussion, there is some time that you need to absorb the subject. So there is no point that immediately after a week I tell you to write the answer, because even if you write it, that won't be a good quality answer. Are you following that? So at least for say 1.5 months, I will not give you anything to write. I will give you just time to absorb the subject. Once we are done with some major part of syllabus, say entire consumer theory, then I will give you some PYQ and tell you to write. I'll give you marks or comment on that. That is how it works. So I won't promise you that every month I'll give or every 2 weeks I'll give. I will give it whenever a certain part of topic is being finished. Then also, so by then you will have all the PYQs. You can take some of them and submit it to me. But the full-fledged test series we won't be having. As in the full-fledged test series where you have 8 questions, say 5 compulsory, that type is a separate test series. Okay, for that there is a separate test series which is there, which you will typically be writing by the time you are approaching the examination. But in between, if you are eager to write few questions and bring it to me, no problem. I'll be happy to grade you on that. No problem. Yeah. Yes. You are talking of paper 2? To some extent, that claim is true. For example, we have seen some questions in paper 2 where they are asking about trends in national income growth or trends in, let's say, sectoral share of employment. There you have to mug up a bit. I will give you tables. Okay. When I'm giving you these tables, I will give you some broader hints also how to remember. But yes, you'll have to remember. But all I can say is that even in paper 2, this type of question is maximum, what, 10%? The remaining 90% of the questions which they ask are not expecting you mugging up everything. Few things need to be, like some committee reports, their recommendations, that needs to be done. That is why in the class, I discuss them already in great detail. So my way of teaching is that, although I give you material, but in my way of teaching is that I write a lot in class, that I do in GS also, that I do even more in optional. So what happens is that when you write along with me, one layer of that material is in your mind already. If you revise it immediately after the class, another layer goes into, and that will not be very difficult to mug up later. I hope that is the fact. But then a little bit of mugging up will be needed in every subject. You can't do much about it. The nature of the exam is such that little bit of memorization will be needed in GS also and in most of the optional papers also. Okay. Any other question? Doubts? Nothing? Okay. Yes. Depends. Like this year, they asked very easy question. This year's question I would call as among the easiest question paper. You can look into that. Easiest in the sense, one, it was very balanced. This year they had a very balanced question like micro, macro, international, growth, development in a very balanced format and not very, very indirect, as in the wordings were very direct also. Okay. Exactly matching with, just to give you an example, you can talk to some optional student of last year. When the mains exam happened, I had just started with macroeconomics. I had done maybe around 7-8 classes on macroeconomics by then. And till that point only, the students were able to solve roughly about 40 to 50% of the question paper from my class notes. Okay, but it happened this year is not a guarantee it will happen next year. So depending upon year to year, sometimes questions may be a little complex. Exactly. So my advice will be that you should be prepared for a tougher one. Okay, if it is a tougher one, you will be able to handle. And if it is a tougher one, hopefully they will be a little liberal in marking. And if you are prepared for a tougher one, you will automatically be able to handle the easier one. That way of thinking generally works. Generally not outside syllabus. Okay, even if there are a few things which are asked outside syllabus, as long as they are not compulsory question, you need not worry about it. Yes, if they ask something in compulsory, then it may be a problem. That much of uncertainty you have to handle. Okay, but that is true with almost every optional paper. What to do? You can't help out much on that. Yes, Shiva.
So, like our GS classes are also going on, and after some time we are going to have a CSET classes. So, I was thinking like,
Managing all three at the same time is genuinely difficult.
yeah, so do you think after GS will it going to be too late for us?
Uh,
Because
Actually, that is the problem here, that in economics we are having only one batch. But what I can assure you is that possibly the CSAT batches are running more often. Okay, because CSAT, the way that CSAT batches are done, that is being taken up more often. So if you are willing to do CSAT, that will give you flexibility to appear a little later, maybe by the time we are finishing the optional paper. In the meantime, you can continue with GS and the optional part. Rest we can talk about it separately. That would be not a big issue. But as far as timings are concerned, the management will help you in that. If you are in 11 o'clock batch, they will help you to either join a 7:30 or 2 o'clock batch, so that it will not be overlapping. So don't worry about that. Okay. Yes. Paper 2 or paper 1? Hmm. Then you are talking of paper 1. We'll discuss all that in the class. That's what I'm telling. Yes, initially I'll give you some model answers. Don't worry. I'll give you some model answers, but actually, I'm very much a believer of a fact that there should not be too much of a spoon feeding at any point of a time, because what happens, then it becomes clearer that you are coming from a very much designed way of learning. There should be some innovation of your own everywhere. Okay, whenever you are writing any answer in paper 1 or paper 2, but don't worry, some model answers I'll be giving you. But in this examination, I feel in GS mains also, as well as in the optional, they are rewarding more of those people who are ready to kind of design their answer in slightly non-traditional fashion, yet correct. Not traditional doesn't mean writing anything, but non-traditional means not writing in a standard textbook format. But don't worry, we'll do all that. Actually, I believe that unless I have covered one part of microeconomics, say consumer theory, there is no point giving you the answer writing framework. Because even if I give you, you won't catch it. Okay, so some minimum level of threshold will reach, then the answer writing, etc., will be coming. I hope that helps. uh, Obviously, if it is highly philosophical, then economics of. I understand. I understand. So, correct. In that way, economics optional in itself may not help you a lot, to be fair. But I think this time also, I don't remember the exact essay topic. I'll have to look into that. But one topic was almost entirely economic oriented. In essay, you have a lot of choice, don't forget. So, suppose that out of, say, 5 topics of essay, 2 are from philosophy, but the other 3 are from others, like one from sociology, one from economics, one from something else. You always have a freedom of choosing one of them. Okay, so if it is philosophical topic which is coming, then economics optional will not be able to help you. But rarely they are asking all. 1 year they asked, I think last to last year. Last to last year, the essay topics were slightly weird, but that was a surprise for almost every optional student. Okay, almost every student struggled in writing those essays last to last year. It was not just a case for economics. This is an exam where they keep on surprising you. So just because you are having economics optional doesn't mean that you can ignore the other parts of it. Your thinking pattern can be that way also. In any case, when you are writing your mains paper 4, okay, the GS paper 4, uh, if you take up the GS classes here or anywhere, there is a lot of discussion that you do on ethics and philosophy related also. So you have to use those discussions to write the essays which are related to philosophy. Clearly, economics will not be of much help. So I didn't say that you'll get help from economics everywhere, but reasonably in 20% of the weightage. That's what I wanted to say, is where economics will be helping. That is the fair estimate, I would say, will be there. Yes.
Sir, like if we want to start from basic, so we should start from macroeconomics or
Micro. Okay, someone was also asking with which paper will I start. I will start exactly in the same way that I did. I will do paper 1 and then paper 2 exactly in the same way. Although I may take up in between something else, but that is not so good for you only, because things are more interlinked in this way. Okay. If you are eager to read a little, you can start with Microeconomics, Kotsenis book. Okay, Kotsenis book is on, if you just, I have written the book already. So if you just, yeah, this one. No. Yeah, Kotsenis book is there. If you just type this even on Google, you will get a PDF version of it. Okay, the PDF version of Kotsenis is available, I think freely downloadable from there, or you will also get it. It's slightly old book, but largely linked with the UPSC syllabus. Particularly the part of market theory is excellently given in Kotsenis. The market theory that we'll do even in the class is largely borrowed from the Kotsenis book. So you can read it if you wish to start. But I would advise again the same thing, that use the time till we start the optional classes to do something like 30-40% extra on GS. I hope you are following that. So basically by 18th of July, I'll be very happy if you have covered your say entire history syllabus at one go at least, or maybe major part of geography syllabus. That would be better for you, because that way the time that you will be sacrificing in the optional class, okay, you will be getting less time to revise your GS classes. Don't forget about it. So keeping that in mind, you should be taking those decisions. Lesser the number of students, better the optional is. Although this is not a theory of economics, but to some extent, he's also asking, is this statement true? As if actually a prelims question. Okay. Uh, can't say. If there is an option, inconclusive, I should say that also. It all depends upon how much interested you are in the subject also. Don't forget about it. Well, you will have to manage 2 classes together, because beyond a point, every student is doing that. Beyond a point, every student does 1 GS, 1 optional, whether you join it right now, whether you join it later on. Yeah, if you are in 7:30 batch, it's excellent. We'll have it at 11 o'clock. Okay, so we'll have it at 11 o'clock. Those who are in 11 o'clock batch, they can just request the management. They will change your timings. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I think that has been reasonably long discussion already. Which section of newspaper? The same thing as GS, the editorials and the explanation related articles, if they come in newspaper. Indian Express would be a good choice. They keep on writing a lot of articles on economics. And later on, if I find some good articles from other business newspapers, I'll share that with you. No issues with that. Okay, so those things can be handled later on in a better way. Don't worry much about it. Okay, so yes. That will depend, write the models. Why not? Depends on the topic that you get. It depends on the topic that you get. You can't predict everything. Definitely, why not? That will all depend upon the nature of the topic. Okay. So, yes, thank you so much. So I think I have answered all the online students' doubts, because offline I can still meet. Online students, I hope you got answers. In any case, I have given the email ID. You can meet me in person as well if you wish. I'll try to guide you on all that. Okay. So thank you so much. Let's hope many of you would be joining me on 18th of July, and be ready for a little longer time period, because I can't do much about it. What I can assure is that our discussions are going to be quite interesting. Leave alone the examination viewpoint there. Thank you so much, all of you.